Ben here from the Beardy Man Craft Beer channel. Thanks very much for joining me on another episode. Now, for many a home brewer, the options that are available to them for storing the beer after fermentation, it's either to bottle their beer or to keg their beer. Now, there are a few pros and cons for either method. I'm not going to get into those now. This video is really all about the DIY kegerator. Last year I had some kegs, I needed a fridge, and I had one of those picnic taps that I was pouring my beers into a glass. And I thought for a little bit more, I literally got this fridge here on a buy and sell website here in Ireland for 30 euros, and I thought for a little bit more of an investment I can have something like this. So this video is basically me just showing you guys how I put this together for a very small cost. In total, I think the whole thing probably cost me about 130, 140 euros. The kegerators here in Ireland and in Europe are probably 400, 500, maybe 600 euros to buy. So cut out the crap, forget that price, watch this video, have a look at how I did it, and hopefully you can do it too. Right, so the first thing that I needed to do was to mark out the 4 holes for where the tower was going to sit. I've one centre hole approximately 2 centimetres for the beer lines, and then 3 smaller holes for the tower screws. So once the holes were made, I was then able to run the beer line through the main hole and then connect the 2 lines to the corny keg black disconnects with those little small Jubilee clips. 6 foot of beer line cost around 3 euros for each tap, and then the gas and beer disconnects for the kegs cost about 15 euros for the 2 sets from AliExpress. Then I connected the beer lines to the connectors of the top faucets and then tightened them up with 2 Jubilee clips. Another hole approximately 2 centimetres was drilled in on the side of the fridge to allow for the 2 gas lines. And these are the 2 grey disconnects for those 2 gas lines. Now for the tower. These towers normally come with a base rubber ring which I used for marking out the holes earlier on. I then dropped this over the outer beer lines and then positioned it over the pre-drilled holes. So the tower came with an inner installation tube which basically slides up the inside. I then ran the 2 outer beer lines up through the centre of the tower and then pulled them out from the top. I then fixed the tower over the rubber ring, making sure then that all the holes were aligned. So for fixing the tower in place, I used 3 long threaded bolts, 3 washers and 3 nuts, which I purchased for around 50 cents from the local DIY store. Each of the long threaded bolts were then slipped down through the holes of the tower base and down into the pre-drilled holes in the fridge. Now I needed to ensure that the threaded bolts were long enough to protrude from the holes inside of the fridge, so getting the correct size bolts was very important. Then it was a simple case of placing each of the washers over the threaded bolts and screwing on the nuts. Now you can see here that I've only used 3 threaded bolts, as a 4th back bolt just wasn't possible due to the position of the tower, but that's absolutely fine as 3 bolts was more than enough to keep this tower sturdy. I then just had to hand tighten the nuts as much as possible. I used a screwdriver to hold the threaded bolts in place while I tightened the nuts from inside the fridge. I was then able to lower the tower base cover which conceals the bolt heads nicely. Now for the beer top faucets themselves. These came with a lock nut which I screwed down to the base of the faucet shank. The top faucets cost approximately 18 euros and that was from AliExpress at the time. There's also a black plastic flange which is very good for kind of concealing that hole on the actual tower itself, and I just set that in along then with a rubber and a plastic ring for inside the tower itself. So I take the black rubber ring and the plastic washer and I place them in position over the shank hole, and that's on the inside of the tower. I insert the tap faucet shank through that hole to connect with the hose barb tap connector which I attached to the beer lines earlier. Holding the inside nut of the hose barb connector, I was then able to hand tighten the tap faucet. Now this particular tap faucet also came with one of those tightening wrenches, and these are very handy as I wanted to ensure that the connections were really tight to avoid any unwanted leaks. I then hand tightened the outer lock nut up against the black plastic flange. And then following that then I used a wrench again just to ensure a nice tight connection. Same deal then for the second tap. On with the black rubber inner ring. Connected the hose barb tap connector with the faucet shank. Tightened up my outer lock nut against the black plastic flange. And then use the wrench to secure a nice tight connection once again. Here's a view of those connections. There's probably other ways these can be connected, but this is my solution. So the chrome beer tower came with a top inner circular foam insulator, which I placed over my inner connections. Then it was just a case of popping on the top tower lid and then knocking that down securely. Onto the Chrome Effect beer tap decal holders. So the base of the decal holder is connected with 2 screws to allow you to connect them over the faucet lever collar. I designed each of the beer labels on my laptop, printed them off, stuck on clear vinyl over the face of them, and then cut them to size with the scissors. Taking the decal holder in one hand, I placed upside down over the faucet lever collar and connected the base of the decal holder and screwed it loosely into place. I then spin the decal holder around upright at a slight angle and then tighten those screws so the decal holder is secure to the tap faucet itself. Same deal with the second decal holder. Pop it on upside down. Attach the base of the decal holder. Tighten it on with your screws, but don't tighten them up yet. Spin the decal holder around upright, fix it into position, and then fully tighten those screws. All that's left to do now is to connect the black corny keg disconnects to the in-connect post for each of your kegs. Place your kegs into your new Kegerator. Add your beer tray. I got this one on AliExpress for €15 and voila! So guys, essentially that's all that's required on putting together one of these DIY Kegerators. You have your decals, you have your 2 taps, your beer faucets, your tower and your tray, all connected to the lines inside down into your keg. You'll obviously have your CO2 cylinder, either inside or outside, which will be connected then to your gas, and will connect then to your in-connects on top of your kegs. There's really not much in it. As you can see as well, the finish on this DIY Kegerator is a lovely matte jet black vinyl, which I got from one of the local sign makers. And I measured up the top and I measured up the front and I cut it down to size and I slowly took my time to stick it on. Now it can be slightly complicated, but it worked out really well for me in the end. And I just sprayed both sides of the refrigerator or the Kegerator black. That's really it guys. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I'm Glenn with the Beardy Man Craft Beer channel. Thank you.